So I get asked quite a bit on how to make the NBA 2K League, and so I wanted to make an overview of kind of like the steps that I feel like is best to take in order to make the 2K League. This is really going to be for people who are just starting off on their journey, or maybe just want to know a few insights that I feel like is the best steps in order to get into the NBA 2K League and get paid to professionally play NBA 2K. So the first step is, of course, who am I? So my name is Lance Sessions. I'm the Bucks Gaming's head coach. This was my first season with the Bucks. I was a rookie head coach. And in my first season, we actually won the NBA 2K League championship. It was an insane story. So, of course, like I would suggest going to our Twitter or just kind of looking back to see the journey that we took. And the reason why I'm just going through this is just to kind of give you an insight of why you want to listen to some of the things I'm saying. This year, I also won Coach of the Year as a rookie head coach. So, of course, thank you to all my peers. And so with some of these things, like I said, it's just I just want to build credibility with you on understanding that this isn't like just out of nowhere, like some random person really talking about these things. I've been in the NBA 2K League for 4 seasons. I was an assistant coach. And so I just feel like right here with this guide, let's just really like give you every little tidbit and tool that you kind of need in order to start your journey. So first off, of course, what is the NBA 2K League? So here's a little step-by-step. I kind of put 4 points here. So what is the NBA 2K League? It's a competitive esports league. It's co-founded by the NBA and Take-Two, who make actual NBA games. So they kind of partnered up with the league. There's 25 teams now in the NBA 2K League. We just added a team from Australia, so that's exciting. There's 5 players per team. And this last season, there was $2.5 million prize pool across 6 tournaments. So if you won every single event that you could, that kind of is the range of the money that your team would come in. And so we can get into the money later. And I have a link I'm going to put in the description. I'm going to pull it up here. So here's a link with all the questions. It's on the NBA 2K League website. So any question that you have generally is going to be right here on this list. I'm not going to run through it all. But like I said, the link's going to be in the description below if you really want to check out and just kind of learn a little bit more. So the next step is going to be how to get drafted in NBA 2K League. Like, what are the actual steps that you need to be taking as a player to set yourself up to, be able to get drafted? Because it's a whole process in itself, and we'll kind of get into it as we go. So first off, you need to be 18 years or older in order to be in the NBA 2K League. There's no cap to the high-end age. You can be as old as you want as long as the team likes you. But the minimum age is 18 years old. And then the second part is this isn't, fit for every single person when it comes to like how to make the league. We've had my team players, park players, all this type of stuff. But the reason why I say you need to create a pro-am team with 4 other competitive players who will make the league is that this is generally the go-to way to make the league is through pro-am and playing in amateur tournaments and all that stuff we'll get into. But I'm not saying that pro-am is the only way to make the league, but if for your best odds, it is going to be probably the best way kind of build your name and make the NBA 2K League. And so this is really the first hurdle for most people when they want to join the NBA 2K League is they have no team, they have no one to play with, all of these types of things. Their IRL friends or friends that they have in real life aren't as good as they are. And so this is where now you as a player, you need to start branching out. And so here are 3 things that I feel like you could really start that process is first off, you need to be on Twitter. I wouldn't say it's mandatory to join the league to be on Twitter, but you really need to get an understanding of our league is really like first and foremost on Twitter. We are on every single social media. The NBA 2K League is on everything. But this is where you're going to be able to follow other 2K League pros, coaches, GMs, follow the teams themselves. And then a lot of like serious players are going to take this step, go on there, post that they're a free agent looking for a team. And so if you're a really good player, you play in rec, you play park, you play my team, and you're really good, you always like beat all your buddies and you want to make a team, join Twitter. Make a gaming handle, like whatever your handle is, and that'll kind of be the first step to, finding a team. And so I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about when I mean by going on Twitter to find players. So here is my personal Twitter, and so up here, you can come up here, and I've already done this before, but you can just type in NBA 2K23 FA, which means free agent. You can click latest, and then there's going to be some players that are looking for teammates. Now, it doesn't mean that these are necessarily insanely great players, but some of these players could be really good. And this is just kind of the first step for you to be able to reach out to them. Or another way to do it is to go to some of the amateur leagues. And so Unified Pro-Am, there's 3 leagues under this, WR, MPBA, and ADBA. We'll get into those later. But you can come under here where registrations are happening. And if you come here, you could actually go to quote tweets most of the time. And there's some people that might be looking for players, or maybe even comments under these looking for, see right here, who needs a power forward. And so you could click this person, DM them, send them a message, and vice versa. So that's just a few ways, like with Twitter, you can actually go out, reach out to other players who are competitive as you, and then try to see if you guys can work together. And with step 2 here, it says connect with players as you play. So a lot of the time as you play rec, park, pro-am, whatever you're playing, you're going to run into other players and other teams that are really good and they beat you, this or that. And I always say, instead of sending them a message of like, you're not good, whatever, all this stuff that's kind of toxic, I always think it's good to reach out, connect with those players. There's been plenty of times myself where I've been playing, a person was pretty good, and I wanted to see if they knew about the 2K League, because, if you're a talented player, that's the first foundational piece of kind of this journey. You got to be a talented player. So I would say reach out, connect, trying to see if there's any way that you could actually, be friends or, acquaintances with this and have them play with you, or you guys run together. And that could be a great way to find good players. The last step, and I'll put a few Discords in the description below. There's NBA 2K Discord servers with a lot of players, the same way as kind of Twitter, if you know what Discord is. And so a lot of these players join these Discords to actually like match up against each other. So instead of playing ranked pro-am, they set up like their team versus another team. And a lot of the times with these teams, like one player can't play, and it's just an opportunity for yourself to be able to, run with a team that's competitive. So sometimes instead of you just creating a whole team for yourself, sometimes a lot of these competitive teams just need like 1 or 2 more players to kind of fulfill, to find 5 people to play with. So this could be your chance. If you're by yourself, you're a decent player. The positions they usually need are like power forward, sharps, locks. Those are like usually the main ones, is to go in these Discords. And it's kind of the same thing with Twitter. Post that you're a free agent, you might get a tryout, and just reach out to people and connect. And so that was step 1. So now we'll go into step 2, which is you must play in amateur leagues and tournaments. Now, is this mandatory? Absolutely not. This is not a mandatory thing that has to happen. But with GMs and coaches and the pro players in the 2K League, we're able in the offseason to see you play against the pros. So myself, Bucks Gaming, I had 5 professional players this last year. Like I said, we won a championship. And so a lot of the guys that were on my team are going to be playing in these types of leagues. So you as a prospect, if you could load up and beat my players, then it's just, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's just going to make you look more talented. It's going to give you more of an opportunity to kind of showcase your things. So UPA, they do live events. They have a lot of connections with the NBA 2K League. Some of the people who are associated with it are in the 2K League themselves. And so they are a great organization, I would say, to play under. Generally, these are like the 3 go-to. So it's WRMPBA and ADBA, which again, all this will be in the description below. So you need to start here. So after you find your 5 players, create your pro-am team. Maybe you play ranked. Maybe you do all this. You got a good understanding of how to play competitive pro-am. Now it's time to get on Twitter, and I will show you how that's done right here. And so what I mean by the amateur pro-am leagues is that, again, back to Twitter. Again, like I said, this is really a foundational piece from a little bit ago. You could click Unified Pro-Am, go to their website, and you'll see these registrations. As you can tell, that they just had a live event in Philadelphia. You can kind of see some pros/amateurs in some of the events. It's absolutely insane to go to. It takes 2K to a whole nother level. But what I mean is you can see registrations are opening them up for tournaments. So, you got your 5. And as I recorded this video, there's 9 days left to register. So you have your 5 players in your team. You're going to click register here. You're actually going to go to their website. And then this is where you're going to fill out everything. So again, as a pro-am team, if you're Xbox or PlayStation, you're going to fill in your team name, you'll upload your logo. And if you don't have a logo, there's a lot of people on Twitter or things, or you can just get anything kind of to just start this. Because at this point, you're just starting your journey as a captain. So one person kind of needs to be the leader of the team, whoever usually made it, or your point guard. That's kind of the things. Usually the owner of the team. They're going to fill out all this information, and that'll be actually how you register your team to play in some of these leagues. And so heading into this a little bit more in depth with step 2. So you want to again be on Twitter, follow all these leagues that I've just said. Again, they'll be in the description. They're going to each post their own registrations. So like I just showed you, that was just one of the tournament or organizations that we're running. And so you get in those, and each one has signups at different times. So make sure you follow them and then kind of stay up to when those registrations are happening. Each of these leagues, if you've never done this before, they have entire instruction pages on like how the leagues and orgs work or these tournaments work. But in usual, in like a kind of a broad spectrum of like they run about 2 weeks of regular season. So what that means is you're going to be able to match up against others. So if you'll be invited to a Discord chat, and in those Discord, your captain or your team is going to be able to say, you know, searching, or other players can be like, we want to play. And so you need to play X amount of games in order to qualify for playoffs. And so then each of these leagues is going to have a playoff section, and that is where your name is really going to be out there. Now, during this regular season period, you can match up against 2K League pros. You can match up against top prospects, you know, prospects who've been playing the game for years and kind of already going for this journey. And it's in those moments that you really need to shine in order to, you know, kind of start getting your name out there. And we'll kind of get into how to do that here in a little bit. But that's just kind of how the leagues run. And then another thing you need to understand is that this isn't going to be, I wouldn't say expensive, but it is kind of expensive. So each of these tournaments in these leagues is going to be about $100 to $110 per team. So if you have 5 players, you know, it's around $20 a player. So this isn't going to be a free journey. You're going to kind of have to invest time. You know, you got to get your player, all this type of stuff. So you're going to invest some money. So make sure that you just understand going into this that it's just not going to be, you know, load up, play the game, and that's it. You're going to need to be able to buy and pay into these in order to help get your name out there. Is it necessary? Again, like I said, 100% to play in the amateur leagues? No, but it's really going to be challenging if you don't get in these and play against the pros and play against those top prospects. So we're head to step 3 here. So step 3, after you play in those amateur ones, your name's growing. You've won a WR. You've made Final Fours of the MPBA. You've made it far in the ADBA. You've won a UPA event, all that type of stuff. Now is a draft eligible tournaments, and those are happening right now. So the Hornets, the Charlotte Hornets, their NBA 2K League team, Hornets Venom, is running theirs right now. Every single team is going to run theirs. There's rules and things behind it, so make sure to go follow the teams. But this is actually how you make the NBA 2K League. There's 2 ways to make it from this point on, and so you got to build your name. That's what we just did with the amateur stuff. We went over it. We can go in depth in another video on more about that. But now it's time to actually go win a draft eligible tournament. So there's differences between the amateur leagues and these types of tournaments. So within these draft eligible tournaments, there's going to be no 2K League pros. It's your top prospects, all that type of stuff is going to be playing in these. So you're not going to play against the pros. But in these tournaments, if your team wins it, all 5 players are able to become draft eligible. So you got to go win one of these tournaments. And like I said, usually every single team runs at least one. And so that's 24 to 25 chances. Do the math with that. That's that many eligible players that could become eligible to become drafted. So number 1 here, these tournaments run similar to the amateur events. So if you play with those, you'll understand the playoff and kind of tournament format. Each round you'll play could be a best of 1, could be best of 3, best of 5, best of 7. And so the reason you want to build up your amateur team in the leagues and tournaments is because that's the 5 players you're actually going to bring into these draft eligible tournaments. So you can play with the pros before this point. Let's say you're a prospect who is really well known, and you got your name up there and the pros want to play with you, all that stuff. You could, it's always a great idea to play with the pros. You're going to learn things yourself, but now it's time to really get your core players together. So if you're a player who can't play with the pros, it's okay. Just make sure that the Pro-Am team that you play with are all eligible to come into these draft eligible tournaments. That way you guys already have chemistry and those types of things. So with the second step here, these tournaments some of them do run on a strict schedule. So some of them are 48-hour periods of when your game has to be in. Some have to be at specific times. Each one has their own rules. And the reason I put this here is just to make sure you actually read through the rules and the setup of these types of tournaments, because you know, if you pay money to enter, and let's say you have to play at 7 p.m. your time and you miss it and you get disqualified, you're done for that tournament. And I'm not saying you just threw money away, but that's my point. Just make sure all 5 players are able to play in these tournaments, read the rules, all that stuff. And then again, with some of these draft eligible tournaments, most of these are going to cost money to enter. So just make sure You just stay up to date and understand with that many tournaments, 25, let's say it's again $100 every tournament for each team. You get to kind of understand like where your math is and in the number you kind of need to save up or earn in order to enter. And so that is the kind of a really broad view of these draft eligible tournaments. Like I said, they're happening now, so make sure to get your Pro-Am team. I'll link a few in the description below, but the main thing is just go follow all the 2K League teams on Twitter. So step 4 here. So now you're draft eligible. So at this point, let's just kind of go into the next phase of this, because at that point, it's really just you and your team, and you guys got to go win one. And so you won one of those things. Now all 5 of your players are draft eligible. And so these are just little things, again, just how to make the 2K League leading up to the draft. And so you're still not in the league at this point. You're draft eligible. Congratulations. This right here in itself is an accomplishment. It's not easy to win one of these tournaments. So once you become draft eligible, there's 2 pathways you can take. So within the next month or 2, a lot of these tournaments are going to end, and a lot of these players become draft eligible. Some are going to choose to keep playing the game, and some are going to choose to stop playing the game. And there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes on why that happens with certain prospects. Some prospects feel like they played really well the last few months, and they don't want to play bad and lower their stock. I would say as a general rule, I think you should just keep playing the game, continue to build your name, make connections, play with people you haven't played with. And then so that kind of goes into step 2. If you keep playing the game, play with other 2K League draft eligible players or highly sought after prospects. So this is a major piece in my opinion. It's kind of, I think it's just a smart way for most prospects to go about it. So let's just say there's a point guard who might be a top 5 pick, and there's a lot of teams that need a point guard this year or that year. Let's just assume. And so going into a scouting as myself as a coach, I'm going to go find teams at first maybe who have multiple players that I'm interested in, say, or multiple draft eligible players. Or maybe I'm like, hey, this player is supposed to be a top 5 pick per se. Well, I'm going to go see what he does. And you end up playing with him or playing against that player. That's just going to help get more eyes on you. And so what I mean by play with other draft eligible players is, it's just going to help bring more eyes to you if you have other players around you that are also getting scouted. And then playing with highly talented or, possible top picks in the draft, that's just going to be a smart way, again, just to get more eyes on yourself. The last one is you need to be promoting yourself as much as you can in order to get eyes on you. It's not just enough to play the game sometimes. If you are supremely talented, of course, your game is like a foundational piece of this. But there's players that have marketed themselves right and understand connections and things like that help them get drafted. And so leading to the next step, I'll kind of talk about what I mean by self-promotion. So this is kind of step 5. So at this point, though, I have it as step 5, but this is something that you need to be doing year round. Like this isn't just only do this after you become draft eligible. So going to step 5, there's an entire process here that you need to be doing pretty much daily, if not every other day. I know Pro-Am takes a lot out of players. So step 1 is just going to be, like I said, it needs to be done year round. This isn't something you start at the end of your journey. If you do this well, this could really help you. So how to promote yourself. And this is a big overview. There's a lot of different ways that people feel like you can promote yourself. But this is, in my opinion, one of the best ways. Number 1, either you stream your games or one of your players on your team streams your games. For most of the leagues and things like that, someone has to stream. But make sure someone is streaming those games and those games are saved on their Twitch. So a coach like myself, if I'm scouting over 100 players per se, I can't go watch every single player live play. So it's really important where if you have all your streams saved and I'm interested in you, I can just go to your Twitch or one of your captain's Twitches or the team owner's Twitch. I could click it. I could find a film of you really quickly. And a second part of that, take those Twitch games, cut them up, edit them, learn how to do that, and upload those to YouTube, your best games, and I would say make a playlist. So like if your Twitch is just going to be everything that a coach wants to go see, but a YouTube that you could promote on your social media, you go make a playlist of all your best games. Let's say you're a shooting guard, you scored 30 points on one of the best, other shooting guards in the league or that are trying to become drafted. You take that game, clip it, post it on YouTube, and then you start creating like this highlight playlist of your best games. And then that's the ones that you actually post on Twitter. So the next part is promote that playlist of your best moments Twitter. And so you're taking those playlists and those highlights and you're posting those on Twitter. And now if I'm a coach or something, and I'm scrolling through or I type your name in or one of your friends' names in, and I see this playlist, I'm like, oh, cool, film. And I don't go digging through your Twitch. Now I'm seeing the best moments of you. And so this is a way where if there's coaches or GMs or scouts or whatever, I wouldn't say being lazy, but just trying to find the first, video of you. Now the first thing that they're going to see is the best moments of you. And so I think it's just a really smart way for players to promote themselves easily, and it doesn't take a ton of effort. Most of your pro-am teams are already streaming these games. It just takes time to go in. You don't have to go crazy with the editing. Just cut out the end, make it start right at the beginning and end it. And then also just make sure your entire team's communications are in these videos. Me as a coach, if you're a point guard and I can't hear you, I can't hear what your team is talking about, I just don't think it's good film. And so make sure like your communication, all your comms are in these videos. And then the last one, self-promotion, is just make sure you're connecting with existing 2K League pros. And then just like with anything in life, connections do matter. So what I mean by that is, as you go along this journey, you're going to, come face to face with, other prospects, 2K League professionals, coaches, all this type of stuff. It never hurts, to send a message or any of those types of things just to make a connection with somebody. I can't tell you how many enough times, when it comes down to, I'm sure with some teams, like these connections do end up mattering, just like anything, like in a job or this or that. And so with that, we'll go to step 6. So step 6 is now congrats. You're draft eligible. A team is interested in you. So what happens if a team is interested? Because I think that this is something that not a lot of players understand. There are team interviews that the top prospects do get. Now, how many you get is up to the teams, right? Like I might interview 100 players, but another team might interview 10 players. Every team does this their own way. And just here's a few kind of tips when you kind of head in these 2K League team interviews. So going into these team interviews, each NBA 2K League team that has interest in you will reach out and schedule a phone or video interview. So every team, like I said, does it different. There's no one way that's the best way. Everyone does it differently. So going into these as a prospect, number one is do your homework on the team interviewing you. I can't tell you enough times for myself. I just want to make sure that this player understands what they're getting themselves into with my team, that I go in, I ask them the roster from the year before, and they can't even tell me the roster. And so it's like, that's a lot of players to know, but it doesn't take too long to just really get a little ground basis of a team. So let's say, a team calls you or sends you an email on Monday, your interview's on Wednesday. Just make sure you go about doing your homework, kind of know about the record, where they're at, who's on roster, what positions they need. All this type of stuff can really just kind of give you an understanding of, what this team could ask you, or it'd just be nice for the prospect to know a little bit about the team. And that's just personally for me. Again, each person's different, but I'm gonna give you my piece. And then the last part, during the video interview, just make sure you have a good camera, good audio, and make sure, please, to give your full attention to this. This is a job interview. So I can't tell you enough times where there's a prospect that I really like gameplay wise, and then I get them on an interview and there's a number of things going wrong, and I'll get into that here in a second. But I'm not saying you got to get dressed up. Each coach, GM has their own way that they really like to see players present themselves. Of course, that never hurts to throw on a polo or whatever. But also, you could reach out to the coach, reach out to the GM who sends you an interview, and it could just be a quick like, hey, do you mind what, care what I wear, all this type of stuff, what's proper attire for this? And they might say business casual. They might say wear whatever you want. Personally, I don't, as long as you look presentable, I don't really care. Like I've had players interview in hoodies. I've had players, all this type of stuff. As long as I'm seeing the real you, that's what I care about. But again, with other teams, they might want you in, I'm not saying a suit and tie, but they might want you in a button up in a perfect lighted situation. And again, it's just, there's no one way to do this. And so it's just really important for you as a prospect going into these to just set yourself up, to succeed in these situations with the coaches and GMs that you're going to be interviewing with. And usually it just starts with an ask to understand like what they're looking for. And then that'll lead into step 7. And so the draft happens, you interviewed, or we'll start from the beginning. You play pro-am, you're draft eligible, did not get drafted. And so now it's like, what do? I didn't get drafted. Or you're just starting this journey and you kind of went through the process and maybe you weren't a top prospect and you knew it all along. You maybe were going to get drafted. So now it's like, what do you do now? So step 7. And so this is the process if you don't get drafted, in my opinion. This is the period called post-draft. So in the competitive cycle now, thanks to the NBA 2K League, there's kind of 2 cycles that happen. So there's called pre-draft. So right when the season ends for the NBA 2K League and the new game drops, this is called pre-draft leading up to the NBA 2K League draft. So all your pros are going to be playing at this time period. And then once the draft happens, all the pros are now going to go to their teams, and this is called the post-draft period. So post-draft period, I do think that there is importance in the post-draft period. There's a few important reasons why. You're going to be able to kind of start to build your name up. So if you're a player who has never been talked about before, or you're decent but you can't get over the hump of playing against these pros, this is your period to really like hone in on your game, maybe get better at your communication. Like there has to be some flaw in your game or your team or this or that made it where you didn't get drafted. And so I would really just take this time to go out there and try to win as many tournaments, amateur tournaments as possible. Those are still going to be going on. It's always better to just keep building up your accolades and winning and getting your name out there versus saying, oh, this post-draft stuff, it doesn't matter. Teams don't care about it, this or that. I mean, if you don't play the game from the draft all the way into the next game, you're not going to get better at the game, and each game changes in itself. But there's things that you can learn. And so with this, like tidbit 1, is it going to be difficult to make the 2K League your first try? Absolutely. Just like with anything, it's an incredibly difficult process to make it to the NBA 2K League, in my opinion. There's a lot of factors that go into it, from what position you play to connections with the league, all this type of stuff. But if you don't make it, you need to understand why. And then here's a few examples of reasons that I have for players. And so I'll kind of run through these and give you a little bit of insight on each one. So number 1, you just need to be better. So sometimes it's the hardest, pill to swallow. Is some players just feel like that they're incredibly great at the game and there's flaws in their game that they maybe don't see. And that's just where reaching out to some of your friends or reaching out to coaches, they might be able to give you these types of tidbits and just to help you understand, like, hey, listen, like, you're great on defense, but you can't dribble, you can't do this, all this type of stuff, whatever position. There's probably holes in your game. And the first thing is you got to be a great player to make the 2. So I'm going to start with the gameplay. And then there's other things just to kind of affects your draft stock and your ability to actually make the league. So step 2 here, you did not market yourself correctly. So what I mean by that is there's a lot of people like to use the word snub players who feel like they didn't get drafted and they're great. And so, sometimes that's just kind of how things work out. There's only so many spots in the draft, and based on, the years that you've been trying and, where your name has kind of gone up and down within the community, marketing yourself correctly is a very broad statement of connections. Did you post enough on Twitter? Did coaches and GMs find your film easily? Did you play enough competitive games? Did you play enough, did you play in any championships? Did you win anything? You have all this, a lot of factors go in what I term marketing. So if that's the wrong term, that's on me, but that's what I kind of use marketing. And the next one is you did not build any connections with any 2K League players or the prospects. So throughout the journey, you just stuck with your little group of people, which is fine. I'm not saying there's any correct way to do this, like I've said, but it always helps when there's players that are on pro teams. They know you kind of know them, you are in a good terms with them, or other prospects coming along, because you never know kind of how these 2K teams cycle. So like if a team, that was foundationally around one player and that player exits the team, now they're built around your, someone that you really know, it might up your chances the next season to be a prospect that they look at. And does that mean you're guaranteed just because your friend's on the team? No, of course not. But it's just more eyes on you. That goes back to the eyes thing. If the point guard for a team or the center, like a foundational player, is like, hey, you should check out this lock, you should check out this power forward. I know him, he's pretty good. You see what I'm saying? Like it just starts that conversation of, Okay, let's go look. All right, we only have 5 players on roster. I need to make sure our chemistry is good, all this type of stuff. That's just some of the things that go through my head. The next one is you just had a horrible interview. And again, this is one that I don't think a lot of players put time and understand that interview is so important. Teams get up to 3 interviews with each prospect. And so going into those, did you answer the questions enough? Did you answer the question with too much info? Did you not present yourself well? Were you distracted? There's a wide array of factors that I can't really just lay out exactly, this is how you do an interview. Because like I said, each interview is so different. But a bad interview could end everything for you. If you come in, let's say a team, because as a coach and a GM, I'm looking for a specific type of player per se for the team I have. Let's say my team, I need a glue guy, I need a hype player, I need a calm player, all that type of stuff. And you don't need to change who you are to fit that team, but some teams are looking for specific types of people as well as great players. So if I'm looking for a hype man, like I said, or I'm looking for a high energy player, and you're just naturally not a high energy player, that could be termed as a bad interview. But it doesn't mean you interviewed incorrectly. Just sometimes your fit isn't the best fit for each team. That's just how it's just going to go. That's just with anything. But control what you can control. Like I said earlier, audio, video, your full attention, about the team, you answered the questions to your best of your ability. If you really feel like coming out of that, you did all those types of things, you're going to set yourself up good. Now, again, every coach, GM, every interviewer is going to have their own kind of criteria in the back of their head of like what they're looking for. And so really it's just what you need to ask those questions before the interview to kind of get an idea of what they're looking for. And so that'll really conclude like this really overview kind of guideline to make the NBA 2K League. I hope I kind of educated a lot of beginner players on this process, and there's few players who are trying to make the league right now that can take a few small tidbits from this. I feel like I did the purpose of what this video is supposed to be about. If you have any questions about this process in general, please comment or leave any type of message to myself. I really want to make sure that every single NBA 2K player knows about the league, understands that they can change their life when it comes to money and just the experiences that come with the NBA 2K League. But it starts with making sure that the entire player base is educated on this process. So, like I said, if you need anything, feel free to DM me. Like I said, leave a comment below. Also, I have a Discord, so if you have any like personal questions or want to just like have direct contact with me, I have a pretty active Discord. It'll also be linked below. If you found the video, helpful for yourself, or if you want to learn more, make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be really dropping a lot of content now around the NBA 2K League and about how to get better as a Pro-Am team and better player yourself. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.